Welcome to the Quantum City Initiative, a show about the most important stories, ideas at the intersection of AI, cities, real estate, and the leaders shaping the future of how and where we live and work. Do you save and reinvigorate cities, or are you building new ones?
What is most critical for cities in the future with the sort of AI factory race to work? All right, episode 23 at the QCI show. It's going to be an interesting show. Chase, I'm looking at you. It looks like we're in the twilight zone with our backgrounds. How you doing this morning?
We are here in, I don't know if I would say lovely San Francisco. It's a little foggy out there. But we are here for Super Bowl weekend. We've got a number of different folks across commercial real estate. And while we have an exciting weekend ahead, I'm excited because of our guest today. Joe, welcome to the show. I think I'm like your biggest groupie.
Thanks, Chase. I appreciate that. And I've had a number of people tell me that. So, there's a competition.
There you go.
That's amazing. And for the record, Chase and I are actually in different hotel rooms. We are not in the same room. That's not how we travel. But yes, we're in SF. We are launching an experiential driven weekend, which is amazing timing that we have Joe here. If you don't know Joe, obviously check the show notes. His full background is there. Joe was also a speaker at Strata, and we'll probably rope him into Strata 2.0 this year. But Joe, most folks, Chase included, would know you on your work on the experience economy. You just came out with a new book, The Transformation Economy. In doing my research, one of the things I didn't know, and maybe I wasn't paying attention to one of your talks, you spent 13 years at IBM.
IBM, yeah. Yeah, that's where I started my career. I was a nerd from way back, programmer and performance analyst and all that.
How did that shape your thoughts on, the experience economy? Because, when you talk about your books and you do your presentations, you mention a lot of large brands. How did that evolution of the 13 years at IBM, what did you see there, right? That's a long time at a company. I'm sure you saw a lot on sort of where they were leading the pack.
Yeah, and this could be a long story too, but I'll try and keep it short. So one is, I'm an applied math major. One of the things that I learned there is model making, and that's still what I do today. I make models, I make frameworks, I see what's going on and make frameworks out of them. When I did technical jobs, moving into management, into strategy, when we're working on the strategy of the AS400 computer system, I discovered Stan Davis's book Future Perfect, and he coined the term mass customization. When I read that, it's like the heavens opened up and the angel sang that explained everything that I was seeing. Because what happened at IBM was we built these computers for what we thought were large homogeneous marketplace that simply didn't exist. That everybody was unique. And I actually ran a big project, part of the reason why I won the Malcolm Baldrige Award, to bring customers and business partners and systems engineers in the development process of the system. And that's where I learned everyone was unique. So I got that into my plans and strategy. As a reward for that, more or less, IBM sent me to MIT for a year, found out I had to do a thesis. I said, I'm going to do a thesis. I'm going to turn it into a book. I'm going to do it on mass customization, a chapter into a full book, and did that. And that's the DNA of everything that I talk about. That what I eventually realized was that mass customizing goods turned them into services. Mass customizing services turned them into experiences, right? Make people go, wow, and you turn it into a memorable event. And if you design an experience that is so appropriate for a particular person, exactly the experience that they need at this moment in time, then you can't help but turn to what we call a life-changing experience, right? And that's what a transformation is. That is experiences that change us in some way, that help us achieve our aspirations. So everything, flows from there.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, obviously we've talked a lot, and I think for our listeners, it's a balance between commercial real estate and tech. But maybe what you could just touch on is kind of your analysis of where maybe different parts of the world are in kind of this experience evolution and now transformation evolution. Because, when obviously the category that we play in with commercial real estate, it's quite behind in certain elements with regards to kind of making their way up your kind of original famous graph that showed, going from commodity to good, service to experience, now transformation. So I think maybe zooming out and providing your analysis on, maybe where you see people doing the most interesting work or where people are behind would be very helpful.
Yeah, there's very much a relationship to the amount of income you have, right? The wealth that you have that enables you to go beyond goods and services, right? Where you're thinking about subsistence living at commodities and goods level. And if you can get beyond that, you have wealth to spend on your time, because what you also need is a lot of time to spend on experiences and transformations, right? They don't come easy to be able to transform. And so if you have wealth and the time to be able to do that, then, and so very, very much the US leads in that regard. US also leads in the creation of experiences and transformations. So we have the most dynamic economy in the world. And so you see more innovation in there. And that includes innovation, not just in goods and services, but experiences and transformations. So then, and then the developed world is ahead of the undeveloped world. But I will say that everybody seeks experiences and transformations. They may not be able to spend $500 and go see U2 at the Sphere, right? But they can go to McDonald's Playland, or they can have other experiences that they create themselves, right? We are experience seeking beings, and so whatever socioeconomic level, wherever you are in the world, you'll be having experiences. And wherever you are in the world, you'll have transformation, you'll have aspirations, I should say, and hopefully can either do it yourself as your own general contractor, or find companies that at least guide you along the way.
Yeah, and I think for our audience, one of the things to kind of connect your framework pointedly for them, I think what's happened in commercial real estate is a very set of circumstances where digital for the last 20, 30 years has been slowly changing lots of industries, right? When we think about what happened to the music industry, ultimately, I see that as the ultimate experience evolution from, you used to have to go to the record store to buy the CD or tape or whatever.
Or even go back further, Chase, is that you actually had to be in the same room as the
right. The commodity of music, if you will,
right? Exactly.
The raw materials. And it's happened with, Netflix is the ultimate personalization of media. Uber did it in transportation. And one of the things that I always say to commercial real estate groups is when they think about how would we personalize a building? A building is far more dynamic than a car ride. And
exactly.
You can personalize whether you want the driver to talk, what kind of music you want, how you want the temperature in the car, all these things. So I think what's interesting for commercial real estate is because there is inherently scarcity of supply, it's not easy to build, big, nice office buildings. And the fact they still call themselves landlords, which is a term from feudalism in 1100, lords of the land. And it's not necessarily the most customer centric industry.
And now you consider it a fiefdom.
Yeah. And then they go through a global A/B test where everybody leaves their product. They discover that, in fact, they can work during COVID without the office. And now they have to very quickly move up that graph to provide both services that save you time, and then, to your point, experiences where they actually develop, a brand with the consumer, because for a very long time, I think it was a feature, not a bug, that people did not know who their landlord was.
So, Joe, where do you see commercial real estate and office buildings, or the sector at large? When you spoke to our audience, you had some really good questions at Strata. I know you don't focus solely on commercial real estate. Where do you see commercial real estate on that evolution? And then Chase, I'll ping you on that question next.
Yeah, I believe commercial real estate is firmly embedded in the service category, not in experiences and transformations. And in fact, I hadn't thought of this before, but as you asked the question, I thought that perhaps it's one of the industries with the biggest gap between what people want in terms of experiences and what they get, and what they want in terms of transformations and what they get. Because
why do you say that? I want to pull on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, because we spend so much time at work, right? So we spend so much, even if we're partly at home, right? We're spending so much time in these places. You think more than any other place other than home, where we can design the experience the way that we want it. And experiences, if designed correctly, can also make us much more productive if that's what we're looking for. They can make us more creative if that's what we're looking for. They can make us more collaborative if that's what we're looking for, if we design the spaces to do that. But so often we don't, right? We just design sort of the vanilla. It's like the white noise of sound is what we get. And transformations, if you are working If you think about the individual worker, that you want to become better, you want to do your job better, you want to
Mhm.
do it more efficiently, you want to be more creative, innovative, and all those things, and yet you get almost nothing out of the building to help in that regard as well. And if you think about at the tenant level, when it comes to B2B businesses, no business buys your offering because they want your offering. It's a means to an end. Right. So the building is a means to the end of a great business. And again, what are the elements that I want of that great business? Whereas creativity, productivity, customer relationships, and so forth. And again, commercial real estate does almost nothing in that regard of helping their tenants become better businesses.
Joe,
When you
I'm interested in your opinion of, and maybe you've seen it in other industries, but where you think about kind of like the top to bottom supply chain of maybe other categories. And when I've read probably 80% of the transformation economy. Thank you very much for mentioning HQO. That meant a lot to us.
Platform.
And what I think is really interesting is you actually see transformation, not just experience, but you see certain models of transformation in real estate. And a couple of examples are startup accelerators and incubators, right? And it's
Yep.
literally a physical location. Now they are not the owner of the underlying commodity and packaged good, but they are trying to transform exactly what you're talking about, which is a great business outcome for the user. And so when you think about, I tend to believe the old model of owning supply and not moving up closer to the customer becomes riskier, and obviously margin
Right.
compression
Right.
happens over time. But how do you think about that?
Yeah, it is about understanding what the customers really want and be able to provide it to them.
Mm,
And one of the things and so the closer and closer you get to the customer and understanding them, then the better off you're going to be. And understand that all customers have desires, needs, and aspirations. Right? It's a formula that I've heard before, but I sort of like settled on for this book. Right? This is what it's. You have desires, needs, and aspirations,
mm,
and so you can, how do you provide those? How do you understand them as individual? And this applies both at the tenant level and then at the individual person level inside of them, and be able to provide exactly what they want, and how you're going about creating that environment for them. And I got one quick question for you, Chase.
mm.
When you got the book, is the first thing you did look in the index for HQO or your name?
Second thing.
Second thing,
Second.
okay.
First I looked at the overall outline of chapters, and then where I saw it was going, then I was like, hey, maybe we're in here.
So I want to tie this back. So JLL came out. We'll kind of weave in some news, and then we'll continue to riff here. JLL came out with the new trend, the 2026 CRE Trends Report, that work-life balance now outranks salary as the top retention driver. Now, Chase, I know you're a big fan of the term work-life balance, but we could do many shows on that.
Try to hold
But
back.
the idea is that you're effectively talking about experience. You're not talking about flexibility in the office, or at least that's where the
Right.
study is going. So, what I'm curious, Joe, is when you talk about that gap and understanding the customer and understanding the tenant, how much personalization or customization can be done to the individual tenant level?
Yeah.
So, me, for example, is it important for landlords to create the experience like it's just me going in and I feel that level of that special that the building or experience was customized to me, or just in general lookalikes like me or something like that? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, personas, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Ideally, Greg, right? Just what you want, right? That's the goal. And Chase earlier talked about Uber and the things you can customize in there. And buildings have so much more capability. You think about what you customize at home to be exactly what you want. You ought to, ideally, you be able to create a micro environment that understands this. So I'll go even further. It should customize not just to you, but into what mode or situation or context or circumstances you're in at this moment, right? And create that
Hmm.
micro environment, right? So there are times when you want to be reflective, and the environment should change so that you can be more reflective. There are times that you want to be down and grinding away and getting stuff done, and then the environment should change for that. So it should really, it should become what Dave Norton, a colleague of mine, on the pages of the Harvard Business Review, is a genius platform, right? A genius platform
Mm,
that smart platforms sense and respond to what's going on, but genius platforms understand the context, right? They sort of
mm,
get all the data exhaust of what's going on, and then also then recognize that micro environments can quickly become macro environments where now you're working away and Chase comes into your office and now everything's changed. And the music could change, maybe the temperature changes, the lighting may change. You then move into a conference room and should know who is there to be able to provide the right environment that is best for the group. So versus just the individual, when you start working together, that it's understanding what market you are in at this moment in time. And the building should morph to be able to do that, like something out of the Matrix, ideally, or at least that's the vision of what you want it to do.
yeah.
Now
And
that
Joe, who do you see maybe as examples for commercial real estate, but other categories? Who do you think is doing the best job of this right now?
Oh, that's so yeah. Overall, I'm trying to think of anything with with a physical component. I mean, I will say that the best things that are being done are with platforms, right? Are with things that are modular, that can mass customize to individuals, that can change based off of that. I One of the other companies highlighted in the book, a startup here in the Minneapolis area called Symphony, provides a transformation platform to financial advisors, and it enables them to basically create the right environment on their computers to talk to individual clients, and gets all their information there. And one of the key things is that it customizes at the speed of conversation. I love that phrase that they have. It customizes at the speed of conversation,
Mm.
where, for example, if you're talking with your financial advisor and you say, we're thinking about, maybe say we're going to want to get a second home, right, or get a cabin up north, or get a second home in Arizona and so forth, and what would that do for our finances? And he may ask a few more questions about how much money you're looking to spend in that, and he clicks, and within a second comes back the answer of exactly what it does and how it changes your plan year by year by year, so that you know exactly what it is. And it changes, shows you exactly the chances that it takes of meeting still your goals, whether you do that or not. Whereas most financial advisors would say, okay, let me get that, and I'll get back to you in a week, right? We'll do a virtual call, and I'll get the results for you. No, it's right there.
Mm.
And so really, based on where the conversation is going, it's actually changing what it presents basically instantaneously.
Yeah, and
so when you go
what
ahead,
I think
Chase.
is what I think is really interesting is if you kind of go through your first book, and there have been these technology developments that are almost the great unlock, right? Before we could get to mass customization, we
Yep.
needed mass production, which you can go
Yep.
back to when they figured out interchangeable parts at the turn of around
Sure.
1900 and all that. And now with robotics and AI, we've seen anytime you can make a good, instead of a physical film,
Right.
Netflix benefited from that not being a physical product but a digital product. Obviously, when you're experiencing the real world, it's harder to customize and personalize because it's not inherently a
Right.
digital product. But with AI and robotics, I do think there's going to be everything that's been lagging, which touches a physical component. It's still very, very early. Like all these people saying robots are going to take over in the next few years. I think that's crazy. But I do think in the
Definitely.
2030s, we're going to see your kind of original, progression to experiences catch up in some hard businesses. And I actually think they can begin on transformation a little bit earlier in the life cycle, because the physical environment for people has so much more impact on mood and emotion and psychology than most people realize. So I think it's a very exciting time for a lot of these businesses that were inherently laggards to kind of have the
Yep.
full framework to approach it today.
Yeah. If you're a physical business,
Mm,
then what you need is to modularize your physical
Yes.
components and your process, like Lego building bricks. Not many
Yeah.
people, just happen to carry around Lego bricks with them all the time. But, the sectional modularity of that. But if you can turn the product into digital technology, or the process by which you produce that product into digital technology, then you can take advantage of digital modularity, zeros and ones, right? It's the most robust form of modularity there is. And you instantaneously, costlessly, frictionlessly, and seamlessly change a 0 to 1 and vice versa. So that really is the key. And that's what platforms do, is that they recognize that we're going to have this platform that's purely digital, but then it controls the physical environment. It allows then what it knows to be able to manifest itself basically in what's going on physically, whether that's the screen in a wealth advisor's office, or whether that's the temperature and the lighting and the music and everything else in that advisor's office.
Yeah, and that modularity, I think, is the big thing when you look at kind of the, literally the crux of everything in commercial real estate is the long-term lease. And by its nature, it has been the most bespoke business in the world, where they have a raw floor or floors or whatever. They come in and they do a custom,
Right.
build out of the space. And the tenants and the landlords have never started at, hey, what's the outcome of this space? Is it to educate your employees? Is it to drive collaboration and culture? Is it to host
Exactly.
clients? And so it's like, is the outcome sales? Is the outcome culture? Is the outcome learning and development? And if we reverse engineer and they create, when you say modularity, I talk to our customers about, you have the least amount of product. You either have the most amount of product SKUs or the least amount of product SKUs, depending on how you want to look at it, because everything is bespoke. And
Right.
I do think there's now the technology to start to capture data in the physical world, where it's like, did we drive the outcome? Because
Right.
for commercial real estate, when you go in and talk to a CFO, what's the ROI of the office? Landlords don't have an answer to that.
No.
Right.
But what if they said, that, we want to be 20% more creative? And how are you going to design an office to be 20% more creative? And by the way, we can measure that, and we're going to measure that. And every year we're going to pay you based on how much more creative we got.
Right. Well, Greg, I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to stop me, because I could talk to Joe about this for like 5
Well,
hours.
here's the thing. The show notes are out the window again, so that's fine.
I read the beginning and I was
We're
like, there's no way I'm not talking to Joe about
we're whatever it is, 20 minutes in, half hour in, we got 20 minutes or so left. Where I'm stuck, and we'll get back to the show notes in a bit, but is so, let's sort of bring in some hard hitting news. So the software world, SaaS, is getting absolutely annihilated. Although the stock market's up today when we're filming this on Friday, February 6th. AI is effectively taken over, although, Jensen Huang is sitting there beating the drum every interview he has. It's like, no, AI is not going to kill software guys. Like, stop the sell off. Software's okay, because effectively
it.
AI
Keep
is
buying those
software.
chips.
Got to keep buying those chips. The Claude bot we saw sort of over the weekend and last weekend, and Claude Code, I don't know if it's Copilot or one of them, whatever it is, is having a moment where you're starting to actually see the agentic workflows, really provide value. But, I guess my question here, Joe, is, as you think about the experience sort of evolution and the transformation, you've been sort of heavily involved. You did write the book on it over the years. What is the rate of change that you're seeing now, or in the next couple of years, sort of with the AI revolution that we're having now? And then how does AI play into the personalization and the customization that you were just talking about?
But it's funny how, if you can go back every decade, and people will talk about how, we're heading up the hockey stick, of whatever it might be, going like this. And every time it's actually more than it was before. That was just the beginning, and still just the beginning of that hockey stick, based on what the possibilities are with AI. AI can supercharge customization, because it remember everything. It can analyze everything. It can make the micro determinations between individuals. And so it's going to be a huge boon for that. AI is also can be great at helping us figure out what designs and what possibilities of designs would actually affect the outcomes that we're looking for. The other interesting thing that AI is really good at is actually coaching and counseling.
Yeah.
It's actually too good at it, right? Because it can drive people into a little echo chamber, and there are people who have committed suicide, as you know,
Yeah.
from the fact that AI is just mirroring it instead of recognizing it has to stop detrimental things and push you back when it figures out how to do that. It's really good at that, and so so like I mentioned another platform for a transformation platform for you, which is BetterUp. It's in the same section that HQO is in, which is a coaching platform. And companies generally bring it in when they're undergoing some sort of transformation of their own organization or their business, and they need new behaviors from their people, their managers, and their executives and so forth, new mindsets in that. So they want to coach those in. And so BetterUp basically takes what the company is looking for and then also does a diagnosis of each individual. What are your aspirations? Where are you headed? And then comes up with sort of a plan and a set of coaches. And it's like Tinder. You swipe left if you don't like the coach, you swipe right if you like the coach, until you settle on one. And then you have weekly coaching sessions, all virtual, that you're doing with them. But in between, AI takes over, right? Because it understands where you're going, what's going on, and can give you tips and can inspire you during the week when you can't have that frequent coaching session. And it's just really good at counseling. So in terms of transformations, I think that's going to be one of the key roles. You still want that human interaction. I wouldn't want AI to do the entire coaching job, but to fill in the pieces between coach and coachee and the sessions they get together, it could be a very great thing.
Well, I think what you're calling out is where we can learn from kind of the last big tech cycle, which was, when social media first came out, it was, I think, almost completely seen as a net positive. You remember Facebook's kind of original mission to make the world more open and connected, and it was people were meeting people with shared interests, and they were using it online to connect offline. And inherently, when you're an advertising business model, the incentives can become misaligned with what's healthy, on the individual and societal level of they needed to drive as much as engagement as possible to continue to grow. And so the algorithms start to go towards the, addictive information, echo chambers, things. And AI, I think you're hitting on the exact same thing, which is if the incentive is we need to keep this person engaged and what's healthy for them might not always be, like the person who coaches you the best. Sometimes you're like, yeah, man, I don't want to talk to that person today. They're tough on me or whatever. But it's like reinforcing what you want to hear is where I hope we're going to be smarter this time around and learn from some of these things. But as Charlie Munger always said, show me the incentive, I'll show you the behavior. So
exactly. Every incentive needs to be customer focused. You can't if you're a long-term business, if you're a short-term business, want to extract as much money as possible. Okay, you're going to do that anyway. Let me get into something that's in chapter 2 of the book. If you made it that far, Chase, which is that the raison d'etre of business is to foster human flourishing.
Yeah,
right? That's what business is for. That's why they buy any offering, whether it's commodity, goods, service, experience, or transformation. Because you guys think they're going to be better off with giving you the money and you giving them the offering than with what they have in their pocket or in their account. And if you are a business that specifically addicts people to your offerings, and not just social media, there's a lot of legal business we could talk about as well, right? Then you're a racket. You're not fostering human flourishing. You're doing it for yourself. You're extractive to the world rather than contributing to the world. And that's what we need to get to. And that's going to be a long haul. But I think over the coming decades, companies, executives, CEOs, even shareholders will recognize that the best possible business is going to be those that help their customers flourish, their employees flourish, their communities flourish. And that on the long term, that's what's going to create the most profits. And profits are, in fact, the measure of how well you foster human flourishing. They're not the goal. They're the measure of what you do. And if your goal is profits, then you're going to do things that's wrong for your customers and for your employees. And eventually, it may take decades, but eventually that's going to crater your business.
Yeah. Yep. Go ahead, Greg.
I think that I think that sounds amazing. I would love it if that were the case. The world we live in today, with, I don't know, TikTok, Facebook, What's
Well,
what's
look at
the
the
crazy
food.
one? Only
Look at the food.
fans like to bring that
right,
up. It's addiction. Well, yeah, we're
right.
going to talk about RJR Nabisco. It's the addictive natures, and how long will it take? And it feels like everything that the companies and almost most of these AI tools. Yes, they might mask themselves as they can make us better people, but it is about that short-term profitability
Right.
with regards to sort of hardwiring these addictive natures. I mean, these algorithms in the social media platforms, right, are solely focused on getting us addicted. So, how do we get there, Joe? How do we get
Well,
there? I mean, I completely agree with you. Driving people towards aspirations, your well-being, the prosperity, the wisdom. How do we get there?
right. So one is to act more like Amazon,
Mm.
particularly in the early days,
Amazon
although
is
they're always right
addicting.
day one. Well, but I mean is they invested, right? People bought their stock because Jeff Bezos says, we're going to invest. We're not going to make money. We're going to invest in
Okay.
creating the system that eventually then we can turn the spigot. And they have, right? They've turned the spigot. They still need to
Yeah.
keep that day one mentality that we're
Mm.
investing for the long term. Right. And Amazon's no slouch, right? But it is a company that does that. Amazon is also one of the biggest contributors to human flourishing in the world, as with Walmart, as with McDonald's and others, who lower the prices of goods and services, who let people buy goods and services at the lowest possible price and the greatest possible
Okay.
convenience so they can spend their hard-earned money and their hard-earned time on the experiences and the transformations that they value. Right. So that's a valid thing, too, is that you don't have to offer experience and transformation directly. You can enable companies, people to and companies to save the time. And that's, again, what a lot of AI is going to do, save time, do a lot of that time well spent, commoditize this stuff. So I have more time that I can then spend on higher value things. I am not, and I think AI is going to be one of the greatest tools ever invented, and it's going to contribute to human flourishing, and it's going to create more jobs than it gets rid of, just like every other great tool that's ever been invented. Just like, remember back to you're too young to remember when ATMs were invented, but the basic prediction was tellers are going to go away, right? No, the number of tellers in the world went up. Exactly. Why? Because they went to higher value things, that particularly more customer facing things. And that's going to happen with AI, is you're going to take away the 20, 30, 40% of the job that I don't have to do. And with that time, I'm going to have more customer relationships. I'm going to be more creative. I'm going to add more value than I ever possibly could if I had to do that grunt work along with it. It's not about replacing 100% of jobs. Replacing about the jobs that the computers can do more efficiently, and that opens and frees you up to what you can do and who you can be.
Right. And I think Bezos and Amazon, and I was preparing a presentation for this weekend for a bunch of our clients. And I was actually, as I was continuing to kind of go through your graph that we always show, I'm not sure there's a better example of someone who so methodically looked at each rung from commodity good service experience. And Bezos has essentially the best framework to look at what is a product and take that margin. Buying all those goods on Amazon, he basically was like, your margin is our opportunity. And he turned
Exactly.
buying goods into a service with delivery. Now it's
Customized, by the way, to you.
exactly. So he's moving up. And then he went and did the same thing on storage and, with everything at AWS, where it was like,
Right.
we're taking this from something that you buy as a product and we're going to make it as a service. And now they're layering on all these other services on AWS, right?
And Prime Video is in fact an experience, right?
Right.
It's providing the experiences that people want directly into their home.
Right. And I think
haven't
there is
seen
something
anything at the transformation level, but what could do that is AWS to say,
right.
You're not just buying capacity from us, we're going to help you become a better business and
Right.
show you how to use that capacity better and so forth. And with their own AI offerings, show you how to make a better business. So that's the point at which Amazon gets to the transformation level. And then, my goodness, watch out.
And I do think it is the playbook for anybody else in any industry, which is, does your category treat this as a product? How do you drive product margin down, turning it into a service? You see this, my wife works at Primark, which is a retailer, obviously clothing, and she just joined a new subscription service that's like rental. They send her a box of clothes every month, and they learn her tastes, and you can return them and all of those things. So I think it's a very methodical framework that can be applied. And Greg, to your original point about kind of what we're seeing from software is, yes, it's software as a service, but it's still not overly customized. The margin lives in the service you provide to customized software. So like a ton of the profits live in, all of the firms that will come in and help you set up, your ERP, your CRM, or whatever it is. And now there's a technology as a service that's going to drive that service margin down substantially because it can do it so much more efficiently. And just like the ATM example, what's going to happen with AI almost undoubtedly is more people are going to be producing software, not less people producing software. Mm-hmm. It's the Luddite fallacy to a T. Now, the incumbents, if they don't move quickly, are going to be in a lot of trouble. But basically all that's happening is with natural language, you're going to be able to produce software rather than having to know another language, whether it's Python or, React or Java or whatever it is. And so it's going to make it far more accessible to more people. So I think kind of the reskilling is going to be really important, but this like death of software is completely wrong. It's far more accessible to more people.
So agree. Well, I got many thoughts, but where I want to go with this is what is the you guys you're talking about companies, and we're talking about Amazon and Joe, a lot of your presentations talk about companies that do things well, and Disney and what was it, one of the hotel brands, whatever it may be. What is a city's role in all of this, and how does infrastructure and your surroundings and sort of local government sort of play into guiding customers towards aspirations, right? Because as a I don't live in Boston anymore. I live outside of Boston, but as a sort of tenant of the city of Boston, I am effectively their customer. We do have our office there, obviously. How important is it for cities and local government to be thinking about the experience economy and the transformation economy? You're guiding people towards well-being and prosperity, because I hear those words. It seems like a lot of fluff for them. What's your take on cities' involvement?
Yeah, well, so cities also need to understand that it's all about human flourishing, right? It's about citizen flourishing and visitor flourishing, and every program that they put in place should be measured based on how much it contributes to flourishing relative to the cost of it and relative to other possibilities of using that money, right? So that's number one. I actually did some thinking on this when I was a visiting scholar at the MIT Media Lab many years ago, and most of that was around customization. Is how do you customize city services to individuals? How do you provide the space for experiences within there and for transformations? How do you not, for example, use your zoning that sort of precludes being able to have places that do experiences and transformations near where people live, particularly third places. I was in the Netherlands a few weeks ago. Did a number of things over a week there, and one was a presentation, a workshop to a third place summit. And third places, if any of your listeners aren't aware, are other than home and work, right? First and second places. Starbucks always envisioned itself as the third place, but they've been around forever in cafes and pubs and barbershops in some neighborhoods, libraries and so forth. Places where people hang out in the community. And every community, and I'm talking about a place like Boston, you've got hundreds of communities, at least scores of communities that are in there. And every one needs one or more third places. And what I talk to them about is think about going from a third place to a transformation chrysalis, right? A chrysalis that's neither caterpillar nor butterfly, like a third place. It's neither home nor work. It's in between. And it's a place where people come to frequently. And every person that comes in is on one or more transformation journeys. And so how do you help them on that journey? Primarily through reflection. If you just get them to reflect on where they are in their journey and know enough about them to be able to have, human to human conversations about it, they can be great forces for good, great forces for change, for achieving aspirations. And I think cities can support that sort of endeavor, recognizing that every citizen they have is on one or more transformation journeys. And how do we help them on that journey, on those journeys, rather than put up obstacles in the way, which they so often do.
Yeah. And I do think that, there's litany of research from, all of the universities and folks that you're associated with, Joe, that continue humanity inherently clusters. When it clusters, economic productivity, when it's a
Yep.
specific talented group, tends to do very well. And I do think, we now have the tools to be much more data driven about that. But I mean, Mark Granovetter wrote the paper in like 1978, The Strength of Weak Ties, where he did a network
Mhm.
analysis. It was the West End and the North End and in Boston, and it was the Irish and the Italian communities. And
Yeah.
because of their network dynamics, who was able to, ultimately the Italian community got pushed out of the West End. And I think it was in Charlestown, actually, that the Irish community, because they had weak ties, were able to mobilize and keep their turf, if you will. And when you think about kind of Wall Street is just the moniker for financial clustering, Silicon Valley is the moniker for technology clustering. I think you're going to be able to work backwards when you think about economic development on, okay, we have this new technology shift. What's our inherent capability and skill set? And how do we think about that transformation journey of,
Right.
rather than everyone wanting to be Silicon Valley, you think about like manufacturing and steel and stuff like that in Pittsburgh. Well, how do we kind of combine these two things and help people on that transformation journey of what can our kind of industry stronghold look like if the transformational journey is how to use these tools as it applies to our core competency? And I don't think our urban planners and people like that are
Right.
necessarily thinking about that, but I do think we can become a lot smarter about almost economic programming as the transformation for people. And I think you'd see significantly less societal unrest because change is scary, and everybody thinks the ATM is going to take the bank teller jobs and all
Right.
those things,
Exactly.
just like AI, right?
Right.
Greg,
And
what?
and it is scary, and certainly AI will eliminate some jobs totally.
Sure, sure.
And that always happens with any technology as well. But if you try and forestall that and keep it from happening, then you are lowering GDP for everybody. You're
Yeah.
lowering productivity and innovation in particular. And it's innovation that's the lifeblood of countries and
Mhm.
states and cities that helps them grow and continue to provide value to their citizens.
Yeah, and we kind of have to accept that, number one, the kind of old traditional cohort model of education is very broken. You need continual learning, particularly with how fast, technology changes the skills you need to be successful. And so I'm hoping, to your point about AI being a good coach, we can figure out cost effective ways to, it's not you go to school for 18 years or 4 years after you're 18 and you're ready for your career for the rest of your life. We really kind of need to figure out like ongoing. And I do think AI can reduce the cost to do that
Right.
in a way where hopefully you see less, you know, uh, substantial labor disruption if somebody can, apply that in different industry verticals and things and help bring people along.
Yep. Yep. Makes sense.
So let's wrap up with a couple of questions here for you, Joe. A couple that are scripted, a couple that I'm going to go rogue on. But one of the things we like to talk about and ask here, and I'm always curious, is sort of our guess. And Chase, I'll ask you to respond to this one too to see if anything's changed from a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so I'll frame the question, and then I'm dying to hear, Joe, your response. So fast forward 12 months. Okay, so it's February 2027. What is one headline that we'll be reading about commercial real estate that nobody is talking about today?
Commercial real estate is shifting from experience platforms to transformation platforms,
Mm,
right?
good
As
one.
we talked about, is it recognizing that it's the outcomes of their buildings for their tenants that matter, not the inputs that they provide.
Chase.
I think essentially what's going to happen in commercial real estate is similar to what started happening in the music industry, where all these different genres of artists started collaborating. Like Jay-Z and Chris Martin from Coldplay like came together and made a song, and you have like country people and rappers. And I think you're going to start to see very different industries get into real estate and real estate partnering. Whether it's, you're already seeing this in like sports, for example, But I think substantially more industries are going to be playing in real estate because it is the ultimate experiential and transformational platform if you can get people in person.
Okay, I like that. Number
Even though
two,
it wasn't a headline, I'll point out it was just like a really long sentence.
That is, I never answer the
love that.
exact question, Joe.
Love that. That's good. That's why I tune out most of the
That's
time
my
when
feature,
Chase is what I
not a
hear,
bug.
Chase. Okay, this one's about Quantum City. So I tried to, I guess, lead the witness on this one a little bit, talking about cities and cities' role, in the experience of transformation economy. But Joe, what is the single most important metric for a healthy city?
Well, it's what I talked about: human flourishing. Are the people in your city flourishing? And if you measure that, you'll get more of it because you'll change the way you do things.
Chase, we'll have to wait till your second Quantum City paper comes out for your
Well, I'll
response to that
connect. I'll
one.
say GDP per capita.
Yeah, I think you said that last week.
Well, that's a good
So that's
measure.
fine.
We're
It's
in
not enough,
California.
though.
We're in California, Joe. So I'm all screwed on time zones.
Um,
It's early there.
Yeah. So, okay, last one, and then we'll wrap. So, and actually, it's in two parts. So let's go back to AI. What is the best prompt or a recent prompt, Joe, that
Mm.
you've fed into one of the AI models that you benefit from that their audience can learn from?
A lot of my prompts are, I feel like a little kid, are gimme, 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 gimme. Right. So give me a list of this and give me a list of that, and tell me about what's going on here. It's I use it. I don't use it to develop ideas, although every once in a while, like I have a client where I like give them a top 10 list. I'd use it for that. Give me a top 10 list of things they do given that. But it's more about summarizing a great set of knowledge out there and that I can read in just a minute or two versus having to spend hours reading that is basically the biggest thing. I do plan, by the way, on creating a robot AI of me so that people can interrogate it and get my answers to whatever questions they want. So that's on
I
the
do.
schedule.
I like that. My sort of the second part of that question, then, Chase, I do want to hear your recent prompts because I know you were on a flight for 7 hours last night just talking to yourself. I mean AI. So as an author, Joe, how much AI is used in your writing process? Is it
Uh,
just the research, or is like, because I'm thinking like I'm gonna feed your two experience economy and transformation economy into
yep.
Claude today, and I'm gonna
Right.
say, I'm Greg Gomer, what you know about me, what you know about Joe, I'm gonna write the sequel to Transformation
Mhm.
Economy, spit this book out for me as if I'm Joe Pine, but I'm going to get it
Yep.
first, and then I'll get the naming
Right.
rights. How much AI are you using as an author?
Right. So yeah, now you're making me want to do my robot AI quicker because that's how you do it. Just feed all my writings and all my
Yeah.
presentations and podcasts, in there,
Right.
and let it take all the stuff. Because a lot of the new stuff comes out in podcasts, in conversations. So you got to
Yeah.
capture that as well. So actually, I still to this day use it very little. In fact, the only time in the book that I used it was I used Fathom AI,
Mhm.
and I to record my Zoom conversations in that. And I did one on a particular exemplar. I was talking to a couple of people, and so I basically told it to give me 300 to 500 words on what this company is doing regarding this subject, and it was sort of funny. It gave me almost exactly 400 words because it didn't understand what 300 to 500 means. So it says, oh, he must mean average 400. Okay, so it gave me 400 words. And did I say he? Oh, it,
Yeah.
right? So whether we personalize our technology all the time, humanize it. And it was a beautiful structure. I mean, I changed most of it, but the structure was perfect and
Mm.
what it gave for that. So that is in the book. And my book's published by Harvard Business Review Press, and they actually have a form you have to sign. I don't know what they do, what it is, because like the book was done when they gave me this form on how I used AI in it. And I sort of said that's the only time I used it. What if I said, oh, it was like entirely written by AI? I mean, at that point, what are they going to do? I don't know. So it should have come earlier in the process. But
Yeah.
I like that. Chase, give us your most recent sort of valuable prompt or sort of AI usage you got.
Well, I published one to our company where in my writing process, I have a very kind of specific like I do a brain dump of everything I'm thinking. I have the AI make an outline for me. I then, you know, I'm not happy with it picking up my tone. My
Right.
wife is a communications professional, and she continually tells me that I should let it pick my tone for me. So I don't know what to make of that.
She's
But
I
trying to
think
turn
I
you
think
into
counseling in your
a
future,
robot. Yeah.
Chase.
Yeah.
yeah, so I then typically write my own thing, and I don't spend as much time on making it as, you know, word perfect as I used to, because then I throw it back into AI and be like, clean it up. I tend to screw up prepositions and things like that. And it polishes, I do a once over. And so what I did was I created a prompt for everyone in terms of like, here's our material set on real estate experience. Help me create a series of questions so that somebody could say, how could I become a thought leader on different elements of it, you know, whether it's specifically on sales or post sale or technology or whatever. So you can start to, I would say, exponentially amplify impact of one person across others, where it used to take a lot of time to sit with people and be like, here's how you could potentially start talking about a topic or subject. So we'll see how that one plays out.
Love it. Well, we're live from SF.
On
Joe,
the
this was
echo
awesome,
chamber.
man. Yeah, it really was. This was great. Appreciate you jumping on. Chase, you want to sign us off? Any parting words for Joe on the wonderful episode we had today?
I would really encourage everyone to check out the book, Transformation Economy. Again, I think it's incredibly prescient. So, Joe, thanks for writing it, and thanks for coming on today.
All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.